Do you ever spend hours in the car, the shower, before bed, thinking about the eligibility of dating fictional characters, celebrities, or people that you will never have a chance with? Or are you mentally stable? If you answered yes, you're delusional, but that's okay. I am too, and that's why I make videos like this, so welcome to my page. I do pop culture and commentary. And today, we're gonna be ranking vampires based off of lore, powers, and attractiveness. Now, why am I doing this? Because I just saw Nosferatu. Who else saw that? Okay, I'm seeing some people in the room, some mixed reactions there. And I was like, you know what? Who would I marry if I had to marry a vampire, or who would I date, you know? And that's an important question. That's something that I need answered. So I'm hoping today we can come up with an answer for that. First up in the cartoon category, we have everyone's favorite vampire they grew up with, the Count. And I know what you're saying, yeah, he's not a cartoon. I know, just bear with me, okay? I feel like Muppets, puppets, I'm not putting them in the same section. I'm gonna put like the Vampire Diaries. That just doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, let's go. Starting with powers. Obviously, he's got the power of counting. He's very good at math. I really like that. He has the power of hypnosis to help people count. Very specific, I'm not mad about that. He has immortality. He can levitate, which I think is a little weird since he's a puppet. I feel like you would see the hand coming out of his butt. But who am I to argue against the internet, which told me this is a power that he has? So yeah, he can levitate. My man, the Count, can levitate. He can transform into a bat. I didn't know that one. I wonder how they do that on Sesame Street. That doesn't seem practical, but I haven't watched it in a while. Maybe they've got good CGI. And the last thing is he's friendly. That's so cute that they list that as a superpower. I'm gonna give his powers like a 2 out of 5. Don't get me wrong, love me a man who could do math. That's a power in itself. We bring the check to the table. I'm not trying to calculate 20%. Boom, he knows. I really respect that. But I just feel like all in all, they're not very impressive. There's nothing out of the ordinary here. And he's got a hand up his butt. So I feel like that's a weakness there. Oh, also he can walk in the sun. So that's nice. So when we go out together, I don't have to worry about him burning alive. Next up, lore. Now this one is kind of uninteresting because he doesn't really need to have lore. You know, he's just a puppet. So the only thing I could find on it is he's based off of Dracula, obviously. He has a mom, Mummy the Countess, that they randomly mention in an episode. And he's got a couple other vampire friends. But we really don't know anything about this dude. All I know is he's rich. He's got a title, the Count. His literal name is the Count Von Count. So you know he's got money. But past that, like, I don't really know a lot about his backstory, and I feel like that's important in a relationship. So I'm gonna say 1 out of 5. Now for the most important ranking, hotness. I'm gonna give him a 2 out of 5. I'm not a hater against the purple skin tone. It's kind of cute, kind of Olivia Rodrigo. I love that he's good with kids. He's great at counting. He's kind of mysterious. You know, you don't know the lore behind him. But again, I feel like that hand up his butt, it's just gonna create issues in a relationship. You know, that's not 2 people, there's 3 people there. I just don't know how that's gonna work. Up next, we have Drac from Hotel Transylvania. Now, he's got a lot of powers. In fact, he has so many powers that for me to remember them would be too much. So let me read them off to you. This man has got immortality, super strength, super speed, flight, shape-shifting, hypnosis, vampire reflexes. Well, I feel like that's not really a superpower. Weather manipulation, control over creatures, wall crawling, enhanced focal projection, which I feel like I have that power too, and I'm not a vampire, and vampire magic. So he's kind of like a witch. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I mean, I have to give his powers like a 4 out of 5. It sounds like he is the Dyson Airwrap of vampires. He just does it all. Lore. Okay, so he comes from a long line of vampires. He's a count, all right? So he's a nobility. His wife was killed by an angry mob of humans. He became a single father because of that. And then he created a hotel. Businessman. So this way that monsters could not be persecuted by humans. They had a safe zone to be in. I don't know a lot about his early life. I really only know about his life since he got married and had Mavis. But I would say that like that's decent enough lore for me. I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 5. I'm a little worried about the commitment issues to the wife, you know, the dead wife, vampire thing. I feel like they're a little loyal, so I just don't know where I would fit into that. But I do like the backstory, 2 out of 5. Hotness, 3 out of 5. I mean, he's got great eyes. He's a great dad. I mean, if he's a great dad, he's probably a great husband. But again, it's the dead wife thing. That might be hard to move on from. But I mean, he's moving on from that to me. I mean, I feel like I could change him. Next, for my last cartoon vampire option, I have Marceline the Vampire Queen. Now, don't hate me. I've actually never seen Adventure Time, so I don't really know a lot about this. Everything was kind of new to me, but she's got a lot of powers. And again, it's so many. Let me read you the list. Immortality, super strength, levitation, regeneration, soul sucking, because she's part demon, invisibility? Okay, Harry Potter's Cloak of Invisibility, shape-shifting, but not just to a bat, which is kind of cool, and advanced emotional influence, so kind of like hypnosis. And she also can play the guitar so well that it becomes a spell sometimes, and she can go out in the sunlight. But she doesn't really like the sun, it kind of burns her quicker, so we're same there. Honestly, her list is stacked. I can't think of any power that she doesn't already have, so I'm gonna give that a 5 out of 5 for powers. As for lore, this girl has got a lot of it. So she was born to a human and a demon during like a war, it was a mushroom war, I don't know, something like that. Her mom died, she went off on her own, she found some like ice king or whatever, was taken under his wing. She's not a vampire at this point, by the way, she's just a demon. So she was born as a demon, which is kind of crazy because vampires are a form of a demon. I'm a little confused, but whatever, it's a cartoon, who cares? Actually, even if it wasn't a cartoon, it's fictional. There's no vampires anywhere other than maybe like your coworkers. Anyway, back to her lore. She then afterwards meets the vampire king, defeats him, but he bites her, so then she becomes the vampire queen. And then she meets Finn and Jake, who are the main characters of Adventure Time, and they do adventures together. Whew, that girl has a lot of trauma. I hope there is a therapist in Adventure Time. I'm gonna rate her lore a 5 out of 5. I mean, again, it was very in-depth. It's actually surprisingly in-depth for this cartoon. Maybe I should watch this show. Hotness. Now, personally, I don't play for Marceline's team, so I'm not looking to date her, but I will look at it objectively. She pulled a Princess Bubblegum. You gotta be pretty hot to do that. She plays guitar, pretty cool. She doesn't have a nose though, so I don't know. Maybe the princess likes Voldemort, I'm not sure. But for those reasons, I'm gonna give her a 2 out of 5. Moving on to TV vamps, we have Damon and Stephan Salvatore from the Vampire Diaries. When it comes to their powers, they kind of have the usual. Heightened senses, super speed, strength, regenerative abilities, immortality, compulsion, emotional control, dream manipulation. Okay, that's like a Nosferatu thing. I see that. That one actually would be really fun. I feel like I would put it in my teachers' heads. I would be like, give Emily an A on every assignment. And while you're at it, accidentally drop a $20 bill in her backpack. Although now that I'm realizing it, they have the powers of compulsion, so they could just say that to them in person. I don't know. Yeah, the dream thing's kind of stupid now that I think about it. While their powers are kind of standard, they do have some weaknesses that the other cartoon vampires don't have. They can't go in the sunlight without this daylight ring that a witch makes for them. They can be staked through the heart, decapitated and burned, or they can be poisoned with vervain, or they can be given the cure, turned back to a human. Oh, and I forgot to mention, they also can't go into houses unless they're invited. So that's kind of hard. You know, we're going over to a family's, well, my family, their family's dead, family's house for Christmas, and I've got to go in the house and then invite them in, but actually I can't even do that because it's not my house. Like, that's a weird interaction. I gotta go to my aunt, whoever it is, and I'm like, hey, could you invite them in? They're a little shy. Like, that's just not a good first impression, so I don't know about that. So for powers, I'm gonna give them 2 out of 5, right? Very standard, but there's a lot of weaknesses there, and I don't know if we can overcome all of them. Lore. So their story dates back to Civil War era Virginia. Yeah, I know, a little dicey because Damon is in the Confederacy, but I mean, I guess it was of the time. I don't think he really had a choice. Anyway, these brothers fall in love with the same girl, a girl who happens to be, a vampire. And the town finds out, they go to burn her, and their dad shoots both of his sons for loving this girl because they were trying to protect her. And because he shot them, and they both had the blood of this girl that they liked, Catherine, in them, they became vampires. And they kind of hated each other after that because one didn't want to be a vampire and the other one wanted to be a vampire, but neither of them got the girl. So they're kind of damned. I'll give their lore a 2 out of 5, mostly because it's Confederate South. That just doesn't sit right with me. What is it with vampires being Confederate soldiers? Jasper and now Damon? We need to have more Civil War era vampires from the North. What are these writers thinking? Hotness. Oh my God, this one was actually really hard because they're both very beautiful human beings. I guess not human beings, vampires. But the Confederate thing, the girl that they're both hung up on, continue to be hung up on in the main series because they both pick on Elena because she looks exactly like the girl they're hung up on. And the whole like not inviting you inside places, I don't know. It would be hard. And also, I just can't imagine myself waking up and Damon's there with that like smirk eye thing that he does. No thanks, no thanks. For that reason, 3 out of 5. Next up on our TV vampires, we've got Laszlo Cravensworth from What We Do in the Shadows. Now, he's a very traditional vampire, meaning that he can basically do all of the things that everyone else can do. Hypnosis, super strength, shape-shifting, regeneration, immortality. I think the only thing he does special is flight. Not all vampires do that. And also in his bat form, he can talk to other animals, so he's got this interesting animal connection. But other than that, yeah, he's not really providing anything different than anyone else. And for that reason, I'm gonna give it like a 2 out of 5. There's nothing really enticing there. And as for weaknesses go, his are very traditional, so it's stake through the heart, holy water, garlic, sunlight, obviously. There's just not really anything special there, and it's also really hard to be with someone who can't leave the house during the day, so for that reason, 2 out of 5. Like, we gotta go to brunch together, and if we can't do that, it's not gonna work. Lore. Laszlo is from England in the 17th century. He was a noble, okay, Okay, so he gets points for that. We like that. But what I don't enjoy is the fact that he basically did anything he wanted. And by anything he wanted, I think you know what I mean. Paying for women to come to his house, that kind of thing. And he got turned into a vampire by Nadja, who was already a vampire, saw him in a field, was like, okay, slay. And literally slay. And she killed him and turned him into a vampire. So he doesn't really have an extensive backstory. I don't know a lot about him. So for that reason, I'm gonna give the lore like a 1 out of 5. Hotness, 1 out of 5. He looks musty. He looks how a basement smells. He looks how if I dunked a shirt in water and left it in a cool, dark place where it never dried would smell after a year. And also, he's polyamorous and married. If you guys have seen the polyamory TikToks, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, he's giving off that same vibe. So for that reason, hard no. As Ariana Grande once said, we cannot be friends. For the last of our TV vamps, I have Eric Northman, who is from True Blood. Now, his powers are basically identical to Damon and Stephan Salvatore from Vampire Diaries. So I'm not gonna list them all again, but I will add things that he has a little different. He can fight really well because he was a Viking. I'll get to the lore part, but he has great combat skills. And also he knows a lot about the vampire world and the hierarchy. He could fight before he was a vampire, which is kind of hot because that means that he was already working out. You know, he was already taking care of himself. He was already in shape. He could defend me. He could protect me. But he can't go into a home without an invitation. That's kind of hard. Oh, and his weaknesses are also a little different than the Salvatore's. Silver is another one of his. And as far as sunlight goes, it's kind of weird in True Blood. There's a sunscreen made for vampires. What is it? Super Goop? Do they get that from the preppies? Or they could drink fairy blood and then that's fine too. His powers, I'm gonna give a 3 out of 5 just because I really do think that the combat training will come in handy. Just think about it. We go on a date. We go to the Texas Roadhouse. Obviously, there's only one bread basket left and there's 2 people needing to go to tables. He jumps in, kick flips the waiter, steals the bread basket. I mean, if he didn't have combat training, I wouldn't have eaten rolls that night. And for that reason, his powers are a 3 out of 5. Lore. So this is really interesting. He's Scandinavian. I have never heard of a Swedish vampire until now. So he dated back to Viking time and basically there was werewolves in this universe and the werewolf killed this whole village and then this guy who led it was a vampire and the vampire turned him into a vampire and now he's seeking revenge on that vampire. He's a man on a mission. He knows what he wants. Even though that's revenge, I mean, that shows loyalty right there, that he's committed to all these years to killing someone. Just imagine him being committed to loving someone. We can work with that. Lore, 4 out of 5. Hotness, 2 out of 5. I know you guys are thinking, what is wrong with you? Listen, objectively, he's not a bad looking man. However, he's got one fatal flaw. He is blonde. Ooh. Yeah, we all felt that sting right there. I'm sorry, I can't do it. He doesn't get the rose. I'm sorry. Next. Starting off our movie vampires, we've got Nosferatu. He's got the kind of powers that you'd expect. You know, the usual immortality, shape-shifting, hypnosis, dream manipulation, all right? There's nothing new here. He can't be in the sun, but he can control the rats, all right? In this scenario, Remy, forget about it. You can't be under his hat. Nosferatu is under your hat, and that's kind of sexy, all right? So for that reason, I'm gonna give his powers a 2 out of 5. Lore, so we don't actually know much about Count Orlok, which is Nosferatu's government name. We know he's a count, so we know he's making bank. We know he's interested in buying real estate, so we know he's got money saved up. That's really important, guys. Sometimes you gotta date an older guy just because he's got those reserves. But other than the stacks he's got in the bank, we don't know anything about this man. He's Romanian, he owns a castle, he skips leg day. That's about all we know. And for that reason, I'm giving his lore a 1 out of 5. Hotness, 1 out of 5. Now, just to be clear, I'm ranking the new 2024 Nosferatu, not the 1920s Nosferatu. That guy, he can get it. I'm just kidding. Actually, well, maybe. I actually do kind of prefer the 1920s one. I love a pointy ear. I love a mono tooth. It's so sexy. Yeah, but this one, he really needs to get back into the gym. Planet Fitness has been missing him. When he talks, he sounds like he needs an oxygen tank. It's very grandpa core, but maybe that's kind of a lore. I mean, he might die soon. I can take his money, but he's also immortal, so I don't ever get that money. And I don't think he would give it to a woman because he's not a man of modern era. Furthermore, his nails are nasty. He's probably got a couple diseases under his nail bed. He brings rats with him when he goes out, and he can't go out during the day. So what the bleep am I supposed to do locked in this castle? He doesn't even pay for electricity. That's another thing. He's got money, but he's cheap. Well, actually there was no electricity when. Hotness, 1 out of 5. For my next vampire pick, we've got Louie Dupoint Duloc. I'm probably saying that so wrong, from Interview with a Vampire. As powers go, I mean, nothing special there. That's the usual. There's nothing going on there. But it's Brad Pitt playing him, so I can't give him a 1 out of 5. 2 out of 5. Lore. This man's got nothing but lore. This whole movie is literally about interviewing a vampire, so it's just all of his lore. He grew up in a wealthy family, his wife and child died, he was grief-stricken over this, he got turned into a vampire when he met Tom Cruise's character, then they go on all these adventures together. Tom Cruise's character turns Kirsten Dunst into a child so he can be a companion for Louie, and then that turns out wrong. Again, this guy's got nothing but trauma, nothing but lore, and it fills a movie out pretty nicely, so for that reason, I'm gonna give his lore a 5 out of 5. Hotness, 5 out of 5. I mean, he's beautiful, he gives great interviews, and he's got a real sense of morality. Even though he's been alive for so long, he never lost himself. And finally, folks, we have Edward Cullen from Twilight. I know this whole video, you're like, girl, we know you're obsessed with Twilight, where is he? I was getting to it, save the best for last. As far as powers go, Edward kind of has standard vampire powers, enhanced hearing, super strength, super speed. He can't fly. The things that are a little different though about the Cullen vampires in Twilight is they sparkle in the sunlight, not burn. I don't know why they moved to the wettest place in the continental US. Literally just go to West Hollywood. They would just think you have highlighter on. Like, no one would know the difference. I don't know why they haven't thought of this. And specifically, Edward has the power of telepathy. But even though sunlight isn't their weakness, they still can be killed if they're decapitated and burned. I'm gonna give his powers a 2 out of 5. I just don't like the idea that he can hear what I'm thinking. I mean, obviously it's just brain rot. It's just that one woman from the Krispy Kreme meme going,
have you ever had a Krispy Kreme? Have you ever gone to Krispy Kreme? Was it crispy?
No.
Yeah, right. Right.
But still, I don't need someone up there. I need to have a little lore, a little mystery. Just think about it. Like, we're sitting together watching a show in my mind. I'm like, oh, I gotta poop so bad right now. Like, you know, not really sexy. Lore. I do not need to consult my notes for this one. I am a certified Twilight fan. So Edward Anthony Mason, you know, before he became Cullen, was born in 1901 in Chicago, Illinois. In 1918, he fell ill with the Spanish influenza, and his dad died from an illness as well. And his mom was like, please save my son because I'm also ill. So Carlisle saves Edward. Edward comes to resent becoming a vampire. He does not like it, but then he's like, well, maybe I can just kill people who deserve to die. He's kind of like the Batman of vampires, which is interesting because he becomes Batman in another universe. I honestly feel like Bruce Wayne, Edward Cullen, same person. That's another video. Anyway, years later, he gets back with the Cullen clan. They go to different high schools together because it's like purgatory. Like, do something else. Find something else to do with your life. Stop hating yourself so much. See, this is probably why I don't know if we would work, because I don't like this, the world hates me, my soul is damned attitude. Get over it, okay? These were the cards you were dealt. Now you were dealt with me. Be happy. There's also Bella to contend with though, so I actually don't know if we could be together. Not sure. Anyway, I give his lore a 2 out of 5. I feel like his brothers and sisters definitely have way better backstories. I mean, Alice was in a psych ward, Rosalie was beaten, and she went crazy, and Jasper, I don't even want to talk about Jasper. Battle Scars, a little Confederate soldier. I just feel like as the main character, Edward did not get a juicy slice of that lore pie. Hotness, 4 out of 5. Yes, he's very good looking, but he's also super controlling, and sometimes it's like, God, he's so protective, but then it's also, oh, he's watching me from my window. Like, I fart in my sleep. And he's got these weird religious rooted traditional values, like he can kill people, but God forbid that Bella wear a full-length khaki skirt to meet his family. That is, and I quote, utterly indecent. I want to show a picture of what that looks like. Yeah. He's also really cold to the touch. I mean, I am too, so maybe I actually would have noticed that. But the whole listening to what I'm thinking, no. I actually think it would be worse for Edward because my thoughts sound like this.
My life be like,
bruh.
And finally, the winner is Marceline and Louie. It was a tie, 12 out of 15. If I were the Bachelorette right now and there was a tie between these two people, I would pull Colton and do this.
He just jumped the fence.
Anyway, that's my ranking. Did you give the final rose to the person that I did? And if you didn't, tell me in the comments why. Also, if there was any vampires that were my chopping block, there was a lot of them. Tell me which ones they were, and let me know if you want to see another video like this. All right, guys, bye.